Good evening, and thank you for coming. I want to remind you of two things. The first is that cell phones should be shut off at this time, and the second is no photographs are allowed. I'm Richard Stammelman. I'm the executive director of the Montgomery Endowment. I want to say a very quick word about the endowment. It was founded more than 30 years ago by Ken and Harl Montgomery. Ken was a Dartmouth student who graduated in the class of 1925. And since its founding, we've brought about, I think now it's about 175 individuals of great accomplishment in the arts, in the humanities, in journalism, in politics, in diplomacy, in many different fields. And this evening, we have one of those individuals, and it's a great pleasure for me to introduce this individual. Many are the adjectives of praise that have been thrown his way. He has been called daring, original, profound, venturesome, angry, belligerent even by himself, transgressive, intellectual, sensual, fearless, and postmodernist. Numerous have been the expressions of acclaim launched in his direction from the pages of The Village Voice, The New York Times, The New Yorker, Newsweek, Time, which put him on its cover, and Vanity Fair. And I just want to quote from some of these different magazines. He's been called the most prominent and provocative American choreographer of his generation. Another quote, a dancer with a perfect dancer's body and a face like planed marble. A moral historian of America, a preacher, if not an English professor manqué, a poster boy for the zeitgeist, and probably most meaningful of all, this quote from the soprano Jessie Norman. She said of this individual, he is the most soulful dancer I know. Bill T. Jones was born in 1952 in Bunnell, Florida, the 10th of 12 children, into a Bible-reading family of field workers. The Jones family moved to the town of Wayland in the Finger Lakes region of New York State, where Mr. Jones Sr. took a job as the manager of a migrant workers' camp, and where the young Bill T. Jones earned 10 to 15 cents for every full bag of potatoes he picked. A track star at Wayland Central School, Mr. Jones went on to the State University of New York at Binghamton, where in 1971 he met Arnie Zane. And together they founded the dance company that today still bears both their names. Mr. Zane died in 1988 from AIDS-related lymphoma. The Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane Dance Company has brought to the stage more than 140 works and performed in more than 30 countries. Time magazine has called the company a, quote, a modern dance school of exuberance and explosion, end of quote. And for good reason, because a Jones-Zane dance fuses movement, sometimes smooth and balletic, sometimes jittery and improvised, with popular and classical music, gospel singing, minstrel show dancing, speeches, quotations, conversations, sign language, dialogue, screams, mime, and video. For his inspired choreography, for his powerful physical expressiveness, and his multidisciplinary approach to performance, Mr. Jones has been awarded 2 Bessies, a MacArthur Genius Grant, and a Tony, and it appears he might earn yet another award this year for Fela, currently playing on Broadway. I need only mention in passing the titles of the powerful and sometimes controversial works that Mr. Jones has created over the years. Still Here, a dance about the terminally ill, incorporating the testimony of people struggling with life-threatening disease. Spring Awakening, about 19th century adolescent sexuality. Last Supper at Uncle Tom's Cabin, The Promised Land, a 3-hour multimedia commentary on the AIDS era inspired by the Harriet Beecher Stowe 1852 novel. And Fondly Do We Hope, Fervently Do We Pray, one of the 3 works, as most of you know and most of you have experienced, commissioned to celebrate the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. As a major force in contemporary dance and the arts, Bill T. Jones has democratized and historicized dance, using movement and improvisation to confront the most significant issues of racism, sexuality, class identity, and gender bias. He has grounded his art not only in aesthetic form, but in dance's fundamental humanity to express the tragedies of everyday life. The common efforts of us all who will become sick and who will die, to face pain, fear, disease, death, grief, and yet who force ourselves to live and love in and through the very bodies that in the end will sell us out. that Mr. Jones has traveled back into the history of America, to the Civil War, the speeches of Lincoln, the poems of Whitman, the horrors of slavery, to show us where we as a nation have been in order for us to better understand where we find ourselves now, bears witness to his fervent belief that art in general and dance in particular cannot remove themselves from the realities of freedom, justice, and equality. This is because when we see Mr. Jones and his company perform, we may recall Whitman's verse, and I quote, "If the body were not the soul, what is the soul?" End of quote. And as a result, we experience the healing, transforming, and yes, even the disorienting power of dance to call out to our common humanity because, as Bill T. Jones writes in his autobiography, and I quote, "When I look at what is beautiful, I am cured of hatred." Ladies and gentlemen, it is an extreme pleasure for me to welcome yet again to this stage Mr. Bill T. Jones, who this evening will talk about the strange dance, thoughts on making, doing, and meaning, and he will be accompanied by Shayla Vi Jenkins, one of the company's dancers. It is a pleasure to introduce Bill T. Jones.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to thank Richard very much for that introduction, and of course the Montgomery Fellowship Committee for giving me this particular honor of being the fellow here this week. It's a lovely, lovely house that they provide us with, and I've had wonderful, wonderful conversations. I'm tempted at this moment to, because I'm a real stickler for terms, to take Richard to task for certain things, because this is how I am trying to understand how life stories are told. And every time I'm introduced and I see that the narrative is getting tidier and tidier, and I cannot do anything about it. So I won't dwell except to say that he never took a job as a migrant chief. He and my mother in 1948 decided that they wanted to go up north and make money, and that my father started organizing black folks in Bunnell, Florida, in the region, to join him in what was called a season, and they moved up and down. So that was something that originated in the South. He was not, matter of fact, I don't know if they even called him a migrant leader, but it was his enterprise. It was his dream. And my dad used to say that he wanted to become a black Yankee, which was a big deal. Working on fondly so many of these terms, my parents were, because of their education, because of where they came from, they were very much like 19th century people, actually. There's a certain turn of phrase or a certain worldview that was very much just after the Civil War in their minds. And I grew up in the 1950s, but listening to people who felt that they were spiritually maybe somewhere in the 1880s or 1870s. Tonight, the other part of it was probably true enough about all those things about politics and anger and issues and taking stances. And I always thought that I was making poetry. I always thought that there was, I actually thought that I was trying to follow the modernist project. The modernist project really was quite interested in abstraction, actually. The modernist project, if you think about the Russian constructivists way back there before that revolution, they were looking for some sort of pure expression of form. They were looking for meaning that came in geometry. And I needn't tell you how Walter Benjamin was writing and what Einstein was saying about the nature of the universe being this indeterminate place that's moving constantly. That's what the modernist project was, and I thought I would be taking a lesson from the likes of somebody like Proust or James Joyce. Proust in particular, who used life experiences to talk about things much bigger than his life. But there's a strange thing that happens when you are in a society like ours, so race conscious, so what have you, when I begin to talk about the way I see the world, it immediately becomes about politics, as opposed to bearing witness or just using the stuff of my life to make sense. So let's see what this evening is about, because I've chosen a little corner of my life wherein I was fed up to here with people fighting about what I personally meant as a symbol and what I personally was trying to convince you of. But before we begin that, let's do what Pauline Oliveras, the composer, calls some deep listening. I'm going to play something which is a construction made by Daniel Bernard Romain, or if you don't know him, a wonderful composer, and it's called Estella J&M. I'm tempted to tell you stuff about it, but the whole idea of being an artist for me is that I invite you in and I offer you a meal, and maybe it's a meal of things that you've never tasted before, and you begin to make sense out of what you're eating. It's probably not a great metaphor, but let's do some deep listening of Estella J&M. It won't go on too long. We'll listen to about 3-4 minutes of it. Relax. What is happening? Who is speaking? Please.
John?
Oh, man.
Wouldn't you say that what we're dependent on we call reality,
How can you protect yourself?
and what we don't like we consider an intrusion in our life?
Dices,
Consequently,
you got to learn something.
I feel that what's happening is that we're continually being intruded upon.
Oh, man.
That would make us very unhappy.
Looked at it.
Or we surrender to it
Oh, man.
and call it culture
Bring the stuff on out.
Call it culture.
or whatever.
Okay? God bless you now.
Give me an example. What would be an intrusion on your life, for instance, that you would call culture?
And so I'll try to write and stay in touch with you and see what you're doing. If I had found out something else, I would call you and tell you to get your pencil, your paper, and come to the phone.
Well, this weekend I was on the beach.
Yes.
Oh, man. There's not no place for no boy to go.
And on the beach these days are transistor radios,
Yes.
I hope you all will up. You all will up.
blaring out rock and roll.
Yes.
See, and so it just took him right on out this world. See, he's not here anymore. No, he's not.
All over.
Yes.
The 24th of February,
And you didn't enjoy it?
Not particularly. I adjusted to it
How?
the 24th of February was his.
by saying that, well,
Billy's.
I thought of the sun.
I don't want to just take my son and let it kill me, and then I want him to have to know nothing about my grandchildren.
I thought of the sun.
Take my son and let him kill me.
And the sea
Kill me.
as a lesser evil.
Kill me. Kill me.
Well, you know how I adjusted to that problem of the radio in the environment.
The 24th of February was his birthday, and the 25th is the 15th is Billy's birthday.
Very much is the
That was what I believe happened to him.
primitive people adjusted to the animals which frightened them,
Dices,
and which probably, as you say, were intrusions.
how can you protect yourself?
They drew pictures of them on their caves, and so I simply
Fast life. See, and so it just took him right on out this world.
made a piece using radios. Now, whenever I hear radios,
Dices,
even a single one, not just 12 at a time, as you must have heard on the beach, at least,
there's not no place for no boy to go.
I think, well, they're just playing my piece.
Oh, man. There's not no place for no boy to go. Don't know nothing. If you know something, you ain't gonna stay around there long. You gonna catch on when you get out of there. Yes, you will. But
So what is that? Well, there's two components, and that's where our evening is going to go. What it is John Cage and Morton Feldman discussing the intrusion of pop culture on their lives. They are, I believe it's, I never was sure which one it is, someone's on the beach, and he's complaining that there are transistor radios. And how do you deal with that? The public, and we live in this world now, but imagine these innocent avant-gardists back in the 50s worrying about the sound of radios. Little did they know it was coming down the pike, right? And the other voice is my mother, Estella Jones, aged, being interviewed by Daniel while I was over working on actually dancing to Schubert music for a solo show that I was doing at that time called The Breathing Show. It was about 1997 or so, 97, 98. And she is telling him, she was speaking about what's on her mind, about her grandchildren, and my brother Boot. There were 12 kids, as Richard was saying. There was Harris, there is Janie Mae, and there is Roosevelt, and there is Richard, who was called Boot because he ate his booties when he was a little boy. There was Irie Lee, there is Azel, there is Flossiana, who was called Flo, there is Rodessa, there is Vilena, who has changed her name to Johari, there is Bill T., Bill Tass Jones. Bill Tass will kick a nigger's ass. It was my father's idea of a joke. This is a song, I'm not quite sure, but they say Bill Tass was a famous racist governor of Georgia, and the black folks had that song about Bill Tass will kick a nigger's ass. So Bill Tass Jones, followed by Steve Jones, followed by Gus Jones, Jr., the last one. So Estella is now, my father died in 81. Estella is now living in the South with my sister, and she's, her mind is changing. And there's a word, Dyson. I have listened to it. I have no idea what that word is, but we hear her concern about her son who was found dead in his apartment in Seattle. Boot, who had been in Attica State Penitentiary back in the 70s when the governor, was it Rockefeller, sent in the troops to put down an uprising, and Boot was always troublesome, very good looking, looked like a little Richard when he was young, always out in the street running, and he was involved with a group of people who robbed somebody, and he was sent to prison. And he got out of prison, his life was never straight, and he ended up living in a community in Seattle, Washington, where my mother was convinced that he had enemies and that people actually killed him. But the coroner told me, very kind man, when my company was performing there, that he had had an aneurysm in the stomach. And of course it was August, and he probably died peacefully, but was not found for 3 weeks. All of this she was not able to process. His body was cremated by the state, and I took the ashes, brought it back, and now his ashes are in my garden, planted under a rose bush. But in her mind, that place, that ain't no place for you to be if you don't know nothing. Was that this was an evil place, it's Seattle, that had taken his life. So on one hand, we have Estella with her extremely domestic and earthbound concerns, and over here we have these two giants of modernism talking about the intrusion of popular culture, and Daniel Bernard Romain has, without anyone's permission, put them together. And it's called Estella J&M. We will return to it, but just so you know what's going on. So, making that talk, Estella being interviewed, Daniel made something. Doing, I guess the doing is Daniel's and yours, because you're helping him recreate what he was trying to make. Meaning what does it mean? What does it mean that you just heard? I know what I feel when I hear it. But is that the same thing as meaning? Let's move on to something more germane, and that is movement. Shayla, would you come out, please, love? Shayla V. Jenkins is a dancer with the company. If any of you saw fondly, she had a very important part of that. Shayla's going to, because I'm no longer dancing the material, and I had you I'm going to be just a moment, please. When this piece that you heard, Still Here, was made about mortality, people living with life-threatening illness, 35 various cities with people coming in who were or had been living with a life-threatening illness. The youngest person was probably 7. The oldest person was maybe a man in his 80s, 83. And they'd be asked questions about how they love, how they live, how they make plans. What did they have to say to people who were not sick? And I took their testimonies, and with the help of Ken Frizzell, composer, and Vernon Reed, rock composer, we made a work called Still Here. Well, the work was very, very explosive, probably because of an article written in the New Yorker wherein the writer said that it was victim art, and that it was only because I had AIDS, which I do not have AIDS. I'm HIV positive, but Arnie Zane had died of AIDS. This is confusion. Can I actually make a work about mortality that's not, in fact, about me? I was not allowed that privilege on her part. So she declared it victim art and that people should not go because we live in an era of political correctness, and there are a lot of angry people like disenfranchised women, fat people, black people, gay people who are trying to make you feel bad. And therefore, what her solution was, just don't go. So of course, this is not responsible criticism, so we have the pros and the cons, and people were having it out on the front page of the newspapers. And Sylvia Plath was brought up to me at a cocktail party once. Well, it wasn't Sylvia Plath, a victim artist, because how dare she write those poems like that about the problems with her father, and her schizophrenia and all, making us feel for her. And by the time I had gotten to Lincoln, Nebraska, and we were doing this work, I had begun to work with Ms. Tricia Brown, who is a great inventor of systems not rooted in politics, not rooted in psychology. And I thought I needed an answer. How can I keep going in the dance world if the things that I have been involved with actually blow up like this? And I have scars from it now. Quite frankly, I'm still angry about it, actually. But there's a lot of things to be angry about, but there's a lot of things to be happy about. So working with Tricia, she gave me like learning the way she made movement. It was like mechanics, the skeleton, parallel lines, converging lines, what happens when you break the hip, how the body posture changes, something called sympathetic response. If I move this, that last movement was only a result of energy ricocheting up and coming out of the head. So that is her palette, not politics, not psychology, not personality. So the work that I began to make at that time was trying to understand how to be free. This is a phrase called Nebraska. Out in front of the theater, when we were performing Still Here, were two groups. There was the famous Reverend Phelps from Topeka, Kansas. Are you familiar with him? Well, he was in the news just recently. This is a man who is a fundamentalist minister who takes his whole family across the Midwest to any place that they think homosexuality is being promoted. Well, they've also gone to military funerals recently because the reason these young soldiers are dead is because of a war that is the result of God's anger with America because America tolerates homosexuality. So very, very peculiar with 666 equals death, Bill T. Jones equals 666 equals death. The audience had to walk. There's the Phelpses here on this corner. There are the counter demonstrators, organized by one of my company members' mother. Now, these are the liberal people in the community. These are the Wiccans. These are the feminists. These are the gay people. And the audience has to walk straight down through the middle of them. Names are being called, and I was standing there, and I remember the performance was going up, and I went down to the basement, and I'm working on this phrase. So we call it Nebraska. So Shayla's standing in what we call fifth position, and this is task-based work. What she's going to do is her left foot begins escaping. The left foot pulls until the right knee has to give in, and then the left heel comes down, and her body begins to cantilever over with the arms held strictly by the side and reaching out into space, holding the shape. And now she allows the right leg to release, and then it breaks. And you'll see a gesture moves through her whole body. And now the right foot begins to describe a figure 8 along the floor. And this figure 8 turns into a movement that is what we call second position, and the left leg comes around. Both arms are now parallel, and now the arms are going to toss the whole body around, and she releases the left arm, and that should be real gravity. The right arm moves back until she can't go any further, and she falls. There's this angle. It inverts itself. She's now back to the front. Now look at the right arm. The right arm empties itself out, and then the left arm fills up the negative space. And then as if something releases in the lower back, she falls down, now pushing the leg around as if it were just nothing but bones. Now, one more time. Let's do that again, please. This is all about the weight of her skeleton. Arm shifts, and you see she's in releve. Arms come across. And now, as if something, and she releases, hops back. Now, she's going to push the whole leg around like opening a door, and her knuckles straight to the floor. And now she's ready for, one more time. And drop of water goes off the back of the head, down the spine, through the pelvis. She produces a leg, and now she tries to jump over the leg. Of course, it's impossible. One more time. Imagine trying to jump over the leg with your leg. And now, 3 points are thrown into the air, and she does an inversion, and she comes back. Pulled back by a cord, over, breaking that knee again, and she pivots the whole skeleton. And now, as if she is wiping the bottom of the foot, nothing more. She's in parallel. Now the pelvis comes forward, and the pelvis comes through the arms, back at the second. She's in releve. She's going to head, fingers, and she's kneeling. And now she folds herself, steps over with the right foot, and now we have a series of movements. She is going to try to think about this side of her body as one piece. Now watch. She rolls, she steps. She's rolling the skeleton, and she steps. And now, just for a moment here, go back to the shed roof, please. These two lines, this is all she's being asked to do, is make as if it was the side of a shed. And shifts her weight. And now, pushing the left knee down, it finds a little skip. And now watch this movement. Relax. Would you do that one more time? Anyone here know Martha Graham? If you know Clytemnestra, Martha Graham's heroines, after they've done some bloody deed, there's this way in which they walked, right? But this is now informed by the problem of the arm moving, the pelvis going forward, and trying to stay on one level. So she pushes, rebounds, moves through, threads, and balances. The points, elbows, two knees try to connect, and now everything explodes upwards, and she starts over again, dropping, opening the door, and this moment we call a bit like Elvis Presley. One more time, please. I'm in love. I'm all shook up. Right, yeah. That is, I say that not because I want her to be Elvis Presley, because I want her to understand what the act motion is. And now she's just resting. She steps, turns around with the help of the hand, and now to lay out, she's trying to lay her body parallel to the floor, and the left knee is fishtailing in an impossible direction, in a possible direction, and now she connects and recalibrates. Very, very naked movement, and I'm making her do it very, very slowly. And now she's going to do the whole thing again fast on the other side. Now, this is the balancing. Imagine this is the Brooklyn Bridge. Her problem is to balance here, lift this leg in one piece, and the only reason the leg stays is because it's being connected as if this was a chain, and she's going to try to see how long she can hold it. She lifts it off the floor, and just as she begins to lose her balance, she jetties across, right? And now there's a shift. And present, whole side of the body, and moving upstage back to fifth position. And now it's about, let's do that one more time. I could say shiny stockings, you know, that shiny stockings that I wear. Well, this is what that's supposed to be. I told them to think that they're Ella Fitzgerald with big, big black woman legs, and she's feeling very sensuous, and she's trying to bring the leg up. She's stroking inside her shiny stockings. Let's do it one more time. Here. That's, oops. And now, beat the drum with the 2 feet. Boom, boom. Left arm. Turn. Arm. Legs. It's a path of the arm. One more time. Look at the path of the arm and look at the parts of the body that articulate it. Arm. All through the fingers. And she turns by opening with the leg and here. One more time. Here, this is that in the Krishna temple, or if you're a Catholic, the good, whatever that ash is they put on, she's supposed to make that shape in the air. And right. And now, inversion. One more time. From here, this picture is going to be turned into that picture. Here, and the inversion. And she falls, shed roof again, and now just articulating body parts, the atlas joint, which makes the head move. And now this joint. And now the shoulders. She's trying to really quiver the shoulders and isolate only the shoulders. And now a combination of arm and leg. Architecture, lifts up, and there's a 2, one more time. And parallel lines, slow motion, slow. You see the 2 parallels that she's trying to make. And now she pulls those parallels both up, and she's squatting. Now let's slow down and give the beautifully done. Lovely. I'm sorry, pleasure to be interrupting you like this, but it's not a pleasure, but I may have to. So there's the architecture, drops. Problem, like a puppet up. Now, arm moves, arm, leg. That's called phasing the movement. Arm, leg, and now the arm snakes back like as if passing a basketball. And the torso is trying to, one more time, make sure that it's deepen it, please. Right? And as this head is circling, this arm has another job to do, which ends here, comes up and over, and now pushing everything down, and there we are back in that 5th position where the phrase began. Thank you, Shayla. Thank you. All right. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Now, I put you through that because people, when they look at dance, they don't, that she's working. When she's performing it, and you'll see later, it's going to be in a context, she is not thinking about death or mortality or sex or being a black woman. She is doing a task. And hopefully it is constructed in such a way that it's interesting to you and that your mind can come to it. This phrase is called Nebraska for reasons I gave you. Around that time, I was approached by two digital artists working in the early days of motion capture. You all familiar with motion capture? Well, we see it everywhere now in video games. We see it in Hollywood. If you saw a few years ago, the Polar Express, this animation, what they do is they take little sensors, like ping pong balls, and they put them on all the joints in the body, surround you, put you in a specially made studio. Now imagine coming down the spine. I believe there's some in here on the knees, on the ankles, sternum, and so on. And you're in a studio surrounded by infrared cameras. So all of your movements are being recorded and going right into the hard drive of a computer. It's a swirl pattern. When you look at it on the computer, you don't see a person, but it's uncanny because when I looked at it, I could see my movement. So I saw that phrase that she was doing, but only swirl patterns. The idea is that then Shelley Eshkar, who is an expert draftsman, can, quote, reconstruct on those movement patterns, those swirling dots, any figure that he wants. Maybe some years ago you remember the dancing baby on the internet. It was actually a gymnast who was doing all sorts of outrageous flips, but then they reconstructed it and put a baby's body on it. So baby in diapers moving like an Olympic athlete. So the people that developed that hardware worked with Paul and Shelley on what you're about to see. And we called it ghost catching because they had said to me that they liked my dancing, but they'd like to remove it from my personality. Well, whatever, okay. So, and because I felt so intimidated by the information era and digital technology, I felt that was the only way I was going to enter into it if someone took me by the hand and drugged me into it, and which is what they did. So my feeling when I looked at it, I said, oh, you know, there's something in you wanting to take my personality away of what I remember reading somewhere that some Native Americans felt they didn't want their pictures taken because it was someone stealing their ghost, stealing their soul. So I said, you're doing ghost catching. Yes. And they said, the promise is that we will have these movements of yours, and who knows, in 50 years, we can completely reconstitute what Belty Jones looked like, or will he look like Shayla, or will he look like a 5'4" blonde woman? He could be made to move in any way. So it's on that premise that we began to make what you see. Let's take a look at this, and I want you, as you're watching it, to see what you have, what you can remember from the phrases. And the technology is imperfect. They were not able to do undulation. They were not able to show the digits, and they certainly were not able to show what's very important in dancing, the way the feet touch the floor. But it was an interesting beginning. So here we go with ghost catching as it was made for the Cooper Union about 12 years ago, I think.
A, B, C, D, E, F, A, B, C, D, E, F, A, B, C,
like Nora's dove, I'd fly away to the one I love, oh yes. Sail away, oh honey, sail away. When I wore my apron low, I couldn't even keep you from my door, oh no. Sail away, oh honey, sail away. Where? I want you to look here in the trunk. I have some cornbread in there for you. Where, Mama? I don't see nothing. Stretch, honey. You gotta look way in there. You gotta stretch a little bit more, baby. Just a little bit more. They went to bed. He pulled her real close. Later that night, when they were fast asleep, the house filled up with light.
Both legs reach right, pulls left across, bend at the waist, right leg lift. Both arms parallel, arm shift, shoulders, bend the right arm, reach down, take hold of the left foot, lift, drop, left arm, right pushes left across, once again take hold of the leg, push through the knee, lunge into the left knee, bring the right knee in. Right like an insect, right arm, left arm to the buttocks, stretch the arm to the left, both legs turned in, pigeon toed, grand plie, lift the right arm up, right arm, maintain the position as we straighten both legs and come to parallel position.
John?
Oh, man.
Wouldn't you say that what we're dependent on we call reality,
How can you protect yourself?
and what we don't like we consider an intrusion in our life?
Dices,
Consequently,
you got to learn something.
I feel that what's happening is that we're continually being intruded upon.
Oh, man.
That would make us very unhappy.
Looked at it.
Or we surrender to it
Oh, man.
and call it culture
Bring the stuff on out.
Call it culture.
or whatever.
Okay? God bless you now.
Give me an example. What would be an intrusion on your life, for instance, that you would call culture?
And so I'll try to write and stay in touch with you and see what you're doing. If I had found out something else, I'll call you and tell you to get your pencil, your paper, and come to the phone.
Well, This weekend I was on the beach.
Yes.
Oh, man. There's not no place for no boy to go.
And on the beach these days are transistor radios.
Yes.
I hope you all are up. You all are up.
Blaring out rock and roll.
Yes.
See, and so it just took him right on out this world. See, he's not here anymore. No, he's not.
All over.
Yes.
The 24th of February.
And you didn't enjoy it?
Not particularly. I adjusted to it.
How?
The 24th of February was his...
By saying that, well, I
Billy's...
thought of the sun.
I don't want to just take my son and let it kill me, and then I want him to have to know nothing about my grandchildren.
I thought of the sun.
Take my son and let him kill me.
And the sea.
Kill me.
As a lesser evil.
Kill me. Kill me.
Well, you know how I adjusted to that problem of the radio in the environment.
The 24th of February was his birthday, and the 25th is the 15th is Billy's birthday.
Very much is the
That was what I believe happened to him.
primitive people adjusted to the animals which frightened them,
Dices.
and which probably, as you say, were intrusions.
How can you protect yourself?
They drew pictures of them on their caves, and so I simply
Fast life. See, and so it just took him right on out this world.
made a piece using radios. Now, whenever I hear radios,
Dices.
even a single one, not just 12 at a time, as you must have heard on the beach, at least,
There's not no place for no boy to go.
I think, well, they're just playing my piece.
Oh, man. There's not no place for no boy to go. Don't know nothing. If you know something, you ain't gonna stay around there long. You gonna catch on when you get out of there. Yes, you will. But it's a big place. But if you don't know nothing, how can you protect yourself? That was what I believe happened to him.
That might help me next weekend.
Yeah, and I listened to it with pleasure. With pleasure.
That's where he lost his life.
By pleasure, I mean...
So in the meantime, he's up there. My daughter's got 2 mans down in Tampa right now. The next day, after I looked back through it and looked at it, I said, no, I better want to live right on. I got something to live for, because I got grandchildren and everything. I don't want to just take my son and let it kill me, and then I want him to have to know nothing about my grandchildren, great-grands, because I just talked to my daughter about 3 hours ago. Well, one of my little granddaughters, she go to the chair where I sat in the living room, and she rubbed the seat. And I ain't there, she'll just go to crying.
I notice what happens. I can attend to it, rather than...
There's not no place...
as you say, surrender. I can rather...
Right in Seattle.
Pay attention...
Right in Seattle.
And become interested in the...
Oh, man. There's not no place for no boy to go.
Well, what it actually is that you're interested in is what superimposes what.
Oh, man. There's not no place for no boy to go. Don't know nothing. If you know something, you ain't gonna stay around there long.
What happens at the same time, together with what happens before and what happens after.
That's where he lost his life, right in Seattle. Just to look at it, looked like nobody wouldn't hurt you there, but, oh, man. There's not no place for no boy to go. Don't know nothing. If you know something, you ain't gonna stay around there long. You gonna catch on when you get out of there. Yeah, yes, you will. But it's a big place, but if you don't know nothing, how can you protect yourself? That was what I believe happened to him.
Yes, but I can't think unless thought is something of the past. The other night I met some friends in a place which I was very nostalgic about. I used to go there and talk a lot. No one could hear each other. No one could hear each other. No one could hear each other. No one could hear each other.
You want to dry up and come back?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So you know what the parts are. You know how it was made. You know what I was thinking when the parts were made. You know how I feel about the parts. But what does it mean? That's what we're doing here tonight, huh? That is what my frustration is with a career that's being typified as being about politics, engagement. Oftentimes, it's just like your experience here tonight. You come trying to make sense out of something, and which is your right. What is meaning? You complete the piece. You have meaning. Did I have no meaning? I had a lot of feelings about everything you saw and heard here, but is that the meaning of it? I thought about this talk tonight in light of having those of you who have seen the Lincoln work. Now, the Lincoln work was a commission that was supposed to be inspired by the life of this icon and his time. But I approached the Lincoln work in exactly the way I approached this. Started with movement, and then over here there's a text. Two realms of movement. And every day, with the aid of the dancers and later the collaborators, we would keep mixing and remixing those different worlds, those different contexts. That's what you call a dialectic, isn't it? But maybe that's too philosophical, a little boring. But the end result is emotional. The end result has arrows pointing to possible interpretations, but that is not ultimately where I start. And that's what I mean when I say that what I do is not science or arguing any philosophical point of view. It is something that is more mysterious. That's what I call art making. Let's talk. Let's bring up the lights a little bit more. What's on your mind? Help me help you to complete this experience. There's a microphone here. Please say your name.
Hello, my name is Tia Trent. You spoke about Martha Graham, and I'm recently learning about her. Does she have any influence?
Have you seen her work?
Yes. I have The Lady in Lamentation. Is that The Lady in the Bag?
Lord.
Yeah, I seen that one of her, The Lady in the Bag.
The Lady in the Bag.
That's what we called it in class. I've been looking at dance class.
Right.
Has Martha Graham influenced you? Because I know she does her movement came from contractions in her stomach, from the vagina area.
Whoa. Okay, great.
Well,
Great, okay.
But
No, I appreciate, let me go. In the beginning, there was a tradition informed by European theatrical dance, which dates back to the 16th century. That was called classical ballet. By the time we get to the end of the 19th century, in this country, or we are in America, I forget, there was a tradition of folk dance. There was what you might see in a music hall. There were stage shows that later evolved into what we call vaudeville and minstrelsy and so on. Around that time, in the 1890s, later on, Isadora Duncan, like Loy Fuller, began looking for some other expression. Isadora Duncan, tall, beautiful woman from the Bay Area. Loy Fuller, I'm not quite sure where she came from, but Isadora Duncan said that she took her inspiration for the new freedom by looking at Greek vases, seeing the figures on the sides of those Hellenic vases. Her way of moving was groundbreaking because she did not wear shoes, she didn't wear a corset, she didn't wear a bra. It was all about, quote, freedom. This, people in Europe said, this was the American contribution. Long-legged men and women stepping from mountaintop to mountaintop. That's what her vision for America dancing was. There was another woman, Ruth St. Denis, who was a great traveler, another great beauty. She and her husband, Ted Shawn, had been vaudeville dancers, and they began to travel, and in Japan, they might buy a kimono. In India, they might buy a traditional dancing costume. He made dances imitating what he thought the American Indians were doing. He made a company of male dancers. She was always like the Virgin Goddess who did dances as a Virgin Mary, as a Hindu priestess in a piece called Incense. They were kind of just a step away from show business, but it was pretty high-toned in an era that had no idea about what was happening in Europe. So they were one of America's first, or maybe even the second generation of what we call modern dance, Isadora Duncan. They produced in their ranks Martha Graham. Martha Graham, a student of Jung, a student of Greek tragedy, Greek theater to be precise, was trying to assimilate the various ethnic forms, and she says, and this is very confusing, that she saw kabuki and no dance. And in kabuki and no, this is my understanding of what she meant, there was this moment, if there's any scholars here, you can correct me, a moment of intensity. The lead is having some moral quandary, and the eyes cross, and there's a frozen expression, and like this, and the audience who knows this form will start, "Mi-ai, mi-ai!" In other words, they are moved. That means, like, imagine someone, dunking the ball or doing on ice, doing a, whatever you call a double camel and landing in a split or something. The way that the performer does that, the audience knows, and that she said that arresting of movement made a big impression on her about the potential of contraction and release. That's where you're trying to get to. She, as a great mind and a wonderful dancer, she was very, very strong legs, she began to break down the places in which contractions would happen. And as I understand it, there's a contraction that happens in this region, contraction that happens in this region, and a contraction that happens in the sexual regions. And she says, and she's rightfully so, each one of those regions are nerve centers that have various associations and meanings. So yes, Martha Graham was the mother of us all, not quite, considering what I told you. Martha Graham created Merce Cunningham. He danced in her company. Paul Taylor danced in her company. If you had been speaking to anyone in the 1960s, probably even to the 70s, everybody in some way could trace their lineage as a modern dancer back to Miss Graham. So I appreciate your stab at it, but that piece is lamentation inspired by the Spanish Civil War. Women weeping, what you call her in a bag, it's about universal weeping of women I think in the face of war is what that piece is. Yes, anyone else? One moment, please.
Thank you. My name is Emily Langsner. I was wondering, as you're describing your process for creating these pieces, like how much are you thinking about how the audience is going to be seeing them and relating to them, and how much are you just really following your own process, your own muse?
And I'm not going to answer the question because it's asked, at least I've answered it in this life probably 100 times.
Yeah.
There's something else you want to say right now. So why don't you
Well,
say
okay.
what is it that you were trying to say?
I just, I really thank you for like giving me this sort of way. I'm not really a dancer, okay? I'm not a dancer.
There are very
okay.
few people are. So
Okay,
it's quite,
so
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
so I'm more of a musician, okay?
Yeah.
And I play jazz. I think about jazz, and I think like when I hear jazz, like some of it is just so like intangible, sort of, that it sort of loses me somewhere.
And when you
then
say, when it loses you, what does that mean?
Well, in a
You're
way-
emotionally disconnected from it.
Exactly. I'm not as
Intellectually disconnected
Yeah,
from it.
I'm not as engaged anymore. I sort of start to drift, And then so, like, I'm sort of looking for a place that's tangible in the piece that kind of pulls me back so I can be, like, right there with the piece again. Instead of, like, well, this is
So
like,
now how can I make a work for you when I don't know you? How could I make a
Right.
work that's going to keep you engaged and I
Right.
have no idea who you are? Hollywood, they do
Right.
Audience studies. They'll open in some place. I've even done it myself, walking down the street in West. They'll bring me into a room. We have a new pilot that we want to start. Would you please sit and watch this pilot and then fill out a questionnaire? At the end, did you think that the hero should stay with his wife or leave? Did you think, was there one person that you particularly connected with? And if so, would you like to see more of them? You fill in a little box,
Yeah.
right? That is an industry.
right.
Polling. Sometimes it's the difference between something making $1 million more. That's the science of marketing.
Right.
Right. Now, are you asking me, do I do that before I make a work? No, I do not. And I don't think you do either. There are people I know who say when jazz music comes on, they zone out.
Right.
They don't like jazz music.
Right.
Now, why don't they like it? Well, it's all repetitive. It's so simplistic, or and they get so loud, and it just it doesn't have any shape to it. They're just improvising, aren't they?
Well, sometimes I feel like I'm looking for some kind of pattern, basically something to grab hold of, sort of, like.
As an audience or as an artist? You say you play
Well,
jazz.
Both. Yeah. Like I feel it's sort of like like with painting, it's sort of like the difference between like a totally expressionistic painting or something.
By that you mean abstract expressionist,
yeah.
because there was an expressionism that was literally figurative abstraction, and that was very much important, I'd say, somewhere from the 1920s on, right? And the German Nazis called that decadent art, because the Nazis thought that the only art that was really important, that connected to the people, was when things looked like what they are. If you're going to do a man, make him look like a man. Don't make his head look like a potato. Why does his head look like a potato, right? That's not how people look. Well, you understand, this is an old discussion we're having here, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing discussion to me, because I think for me it's important to reach an audience, when you're on a stage and you're presenting yourself.
Reach an audience how, and who is the audience? If I'm playing for a group of young 15, 16-year-olds who love Jay-Z, and then I'm going to actually do bel canto, which I can imagine certain people weep when they hear a bel canto singing. If I'm playing to them and I do bel canto and it doesn't work, I failed. Did I fail? No, I don't think so.
Well, I think as long as people who come to whatever this event is are changed inside, whatever way it is, I think you didn't fail. Because
Right, exactly.
So-
And one way that people get changed is by teaching them to look and listen with patience and openness. And then to look and listen again. And then they need some way, like we're doing right now, and you're sitting there with your son?
This is my son.
Yes. You need somebody to say, well, this is what I felt. What did you feel? I didn't feel anything. Nothing. There was not one moment that didn't stick with you. No, this is what every time I make something and I put it out there, this question comes back. That's why I said to you the other day, is this about art or social change, social justice? They're different things. If I want to get you to say abusing women is wrong, and I want to make a piece that shows that abusing women is wrong, that's one thing. Right. If I want to talk about something that happens about where does a violent impulse come from, a violent impulse can be an egg being broken, dropped on the floor. It depends on how it's framed. Now, do I have to say, this means violence? No, maybe it occurs to you that it is sort of breaking the egg is the most harmless thing in the world, but it's actually a violent thing, and that might occur to you because of the way I frame it, or it might occur to you because of who you are and where you are in your life. You know? So you saw a lot of stuff here. What did you feel? Where did you leave the piece? And actually, this is only a study. It's not really a piece. But did you have problems with it? You didn't feel anything? You were not engaged?
I was pretty much engaged the entire time just because, I can't even imagine being able to move the way she moves.
So the virtuosity of it, the technique of it is engaging.
That is so totally engaging that if there's anything about the sound or not quite understanding how does this movement fit with the sound, it doesn't even matter because it's just so engaging. So anytime,
how does the movement fit with this sound, right? Or doesn't?
It didn't really matter.
Well, but it does matter. It does matter.
It didn't really matter to me whether I was being able to articulate it in my mind or not, because I felt fine about just having sort of more of an amorphous, receptive approach to, without not having to be able to put in words what I was feeling. Right?
And that's what I call them. That's what I call the mysterious.
Yeah.
And I think that is, for me, the holy grail. If it is an honest sense of mystery. Now, I think a sense of mystery is two things. It's when something is completely a break from your reality, or you're seeing something and you sense a unity or a reality behind it that is just escaping you. You are beginning to think in another way, trying to understand what this could mean. I think both of those are valid. And as a matter of fact, if I can achieve either one of them, I feel happy. Yeah. Well, I thank you for the honesty of your response. But I would say to you that, what we are trying to do, the reason I'm lecturing here tonight, is that I'm trying, when you come into the theater and you saw that work, you would not get any explanation about who and why Estella J&M existed, or why Shayla was doing this as opposed to something else. You would be left there with the event and your responses. That is what is big and brave and scary about certain art. Now, that is not art for everybody. I don't know I don't know if this is a piece your son can get a handle on, but I think there may be even things that he might. Sorry to talk to you about you, sir, in front of you, but you are one of the. You're one of the populations that we care a lot about. You're the population that in a few years is going to have discretionary cash. And what will they do with their money? Will they go see a concert? Will they buy something? Will they want, what will it be? How do I get his attention? And then we're going round and round. Why do I want to get the money out of his pocket? Or is it more important that I want him to be sitting in the audience, looking at something and scratching his head, struggling with it? Actually, both are important to me right now. But the second one is probably the one that's more important ultimately to what we're doing here tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told him, he thanked me later for bringing him here
Okay, good. Yes, there's a lady over here.
I'm Adrian. I want to touch a little bit on the mystery piece, and I'm going to try and work through the question as I'm presenting it to you.
Please.
But the voice of your mother, Estella, and that word dices, reminded me of my ancestors' voices and how I became uncomfortable with mystery after they left. There were things I didn't understand when they were still living that now that they're gone, I regret that I didn't investigate further. And so it's become a regret that comes from embodied mystery. Like when mystery is outside of me, it's outside of me. I have no control over it. Isn't that interesting? Let's ponder that. Let's sit around at Starbucks and talk about it. But when it's embodied mystery, when it's something I at one time had access to and didn't take advantage of trying to solve the mystery, I now look back on it with regret. Do you ever go through that, like not investigating what that word was, trying to figure out, or are you at peace with it? Is it you've listened 8 times, you don't know what it is, and it's okay?
Well, my sisters have also listened to it, and no, I don't spend. I accept it as being sound, kind of a beautiful sound, kind of wild sound, you know. And I wonder if I had not told you it was my mother, would you speak to me the same way about it? I shared that intimacy with you because I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud that we captured her in that moment. She was dealing already with cerebrovascular dementia, but we didn't really know it at that time, you know. So I don't know what the word dash actually even means. So Daniel, without asking my permission, interviewed her. And then he went to the website, he found John Cage and Morton Feldman, and he made it as an artist. What was he doing? I thank him for it because what I'm interested in is how 2 poles of my development actually are represented in this. I am a student of that school of modernism that John Cage and Morton Feldman represent. Do you know John Cage's work? Ooh, big one right there, huh? Yeah, John Cage is probably, and some people consider one of the most important artists of the 20th century because he was an artist that said, we don't need a beginning, a middle, and an end in a composition or a dance concert. That indeterminacy, we can actually decide elements if it's going to, I'll start with section B first or section C, by throwing a dice. Everything, in Merce Cunningham, who was his collaborator, the performances, they sometimes would not even hear the music until the night of the performance, the costumes, and that showed how they related to each other. Now, there's something Buddhistic about it. I actually feel life is that way. Did I know that I'd be speaking to you when I woke up this morning? And who are we speaking to each other? What this lady is saying about the audience being engaged or not engaged, I don't know who. I was surprised when Shayla told me, and she and Leah, 2 dancers usually dances, I thought Shayla would be identifying with my mother. But she loves the sound of John Cage's voice. And she likes his reticence, and she likes his thoughtfulness. So I was surprised that I cannot determine what people are going to think and say. What did my mother mean? That's maybe a gift to me, that it can mean what I need it to mean. I take responsibility. Now, what the 2 of them speaking, those 2 guys, those 2 white guys speaking, my mother, what are they both? They were both all about the same age when they would have been about the same age, same period, but their experience was so different. But where am I? I'm a product of both of them. That's the mystery for me. I don't want to write the great American novel because I think what you're getting at, in a way, is what novelists do. I'm going to try to understand my ancestors by reinventing them and having them talk to each other and work out situations. There's a lot of drama right here, right now, a lot to be understood. There's a gentleman right back there, yeah.
Hello? Oh. Hi, I'm Nick. Just watching that is completely amazing. I don't get how you've gotten yourself into that mind frame and how you see it the way you see it. Like, when I watch it from an outside point of view, to me it's just like another world, and I completely get what you're doing, and I completely see it. I just could never imagine myself getting their mind frame in the way how you create, and I just want to know how you've.
I think a great gift to me about art making was this concept that comes out of the late 60s experimentation. It's not, I don't think it's original then, but John Cage being a big one, big leader to a lot of us, although his work probably started somewhere in the 40s. The idea of chance. I think they were very, very concerned in that school of modernism, maybe not Morton Feldman so much, but John Cage and Merce, they were concerned with not falling prey to their psychology or their taste. How to free myself from my psychology or my taste? Well, let's throw a dice. Decision-making gets moved to another realm. And then you're left with something which is maybe something scientists understand. When you combine these chemicals, you don't know what's going to happen until it blows up in your face, so you write down what you observed, and then over time, maybe you begin to understand what something means. But initially, it's about kind of a trial and error, blending and observing. That is how the mindset allows me to make this work. Now, it was a gift to me that Daniel put my mom in it. I have an emotional connection to it, but I don't expect you to understand my emotional connection. How could you know? Like, how could I know what you like or don't know? I don't know you. But that's how is that what your question was, how I got there? Yeah, in some ways it is getting out of the way of a result. Not trying to make it so tidy, which is, I think, what is killing right now a lot of big budget Hollywood films. They're being killed because they're trying to calculate down to the second what people will feel, what people will take away. I think it's the kiss of death, but who am I, right? Yes.
Well, my name is Georgi.
Georgi.
I want to say that this was one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever seen. And I think when I was here when the discussion with the audience 2 days before, and you mentioned that you're doing art, you're doing poetry. And I think it's totally right, because you did not telling the story from my point of view.
Yes, it's true, yeah.
And I think when you're creating the world, for me, is kind of the combination of the very different things, which comes together as beautiful collage for me.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I think your approach is so simple. When I say simple, I'm saying the good sense.
No, I understand.
It's not poor. Because sometimes you see the pieces full of the stuff, it takes you away totally different directions. An approach to this Lincoln story here is totally, unusual. I like every moment of this. I like design very much. I like very much how you deal with the space, how space works. In the end, this woman in the black, it reminds me of Velázquez painting very much. And my question also, how much is the personal, which is inside you? I'm not saying about the storytelling or about something from your life experience, because personal is totally different thing. How much this affects your works? And one more question I have in the end, that what's your next project? I mean, not straight away right now, but you have something in mind.
Right. Well, my life is bifurcated. There is commercial work I'm doing over here, and I'm trying to keep my company together.
Does.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Well, that's strange to a lot of people in the dance world. They don't know
agree about
that.
the Hollywood stuff, about these big Hollywood movies, but a lot of people doing real art. So
yeah, we shouldn't worry about that. Right.
You are one of them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, the personal is important, and I think there's something about the personal in both of these questions, that's very important. What do I mean by that? I said that in the Lincoln piece, I was offered a commission, but it was only when I began to examine my feelings about him and the questions around my feelings that I was able to actually even be set into play this style of working. What are the elements that I put out there to be arranged by chance? So why did I say to Chris Lancaster, I want to be able to use a singer who can sing in a black spiritual way, in a bel canto or an operatic way? Why did I need a voice on stage? Because I knew I was going to be using all those elements, and then I would have to find a way to combine them. Yeah, that is very true. It's very personal. You know, I thank you very much for what you're saying, sir, but here's a story I was told once, and it always made me wonder. Right after the war, I think it was in Germany, the city is in ruins. John Cage was invited to come to Berlin and do a concert. Now, can you imagine, into what people are starving and there's just piles of rubble? And he began to do one of his indeterminate pieces. This is your question. And, you know, squeaks and squawks and reading and, you know, doing things that are designed to be distancing. They were not designed to charm. They were not designed to soothe. And so he's doing this. This is very important art in the absolute. But then, as it's going on, in the back of the room, people began to sing a simple folk song. They began to sing a song about, I don't know what it was about, and then at least a good portion of the audience began to overpower what he was doing, and they wanted to sing this song. And I heard that people said to him, we cannot really hear your music right now. We need to hear these sounds that we know, that make us feel a certain way. We need to. We need to. So the artist is a great artist, but somehow it wasn't what they could absorb or what they wanted. And so rather than being polite, they began to talk back to him by singing. Very, very important. Can I be a man for all situations? Can I be a man when the next 9/11 happens? Can my work be work that embraces people? And which people? You hear, if I had wings like Nora's dove. You hear Nina do it? Nina Simone do it? I'd fly away to the one I love, oh yes. When I wore my apron low, couldn't even keep you from my door, oh no. Sail away, oh honey, sail away. Now my apron's up to my chin. You pass my door, but you don't come in no more. Sail away, oh honey, sail away. If I had listened to what my mama said, I wouldn't have such a funny feeling in my aching head, oh no. Sail away, oh honey, sail away. The river Jordan is chilly and cold. It chills the body, but it warms the soul, my Lord. Sail away, oh honey, sail away. Now, why do I sing this sentimental song? My companion, Arnie Zane, died in '88. I made a piece sort of like this that you saw today, but at the end of it, I'm on a piece of white material, wearing, you don't want to know what I was wearing, but I began to sing this song, and I realized that song about if I had listened to what my mama said, I wouldn't have such a funny feeling in my aching head. If I was a different man, would I not be HIV positive? Would I not be grieving over my companion who died? But I'm singing a black vernacular song from somewhere around the turn of the last century or earlier. It makes me feel good, but I realized I was talking to myself when I was doing it, and what I was saying was not necessarily so comforting to me. The River Jordan is chilly and cold. It chills the body, but it warms the soul. Well, we're all standing in cold water all the time, or at particular times. Was that a piece for that era? It was for me. Is Lincoln piece that I brought here the other night going to help a country that's being ripped apart by dissent? I don't know. I don't know. Wouldn't I love it to be able to? You know, when do you play Beethoven? What's the one? Not the Eroica, but the Ode to Joy. What's the one, Bjorn? Pardon? The ninth. Dun 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 dun. You know, here you have, if any moment when you want to get a group of people roused and feeling good, play Beethoven, yes, or Bach, you know. I don't know if I'm in that class, and I'm a little more hit or miss, you know. Those guys are so much a part of our culture now. I don't know if it works for all folks. Does Beethoven do it for you when you're feeling sad? Yeah? Chris says yes, right? Well, you know, so bring them out. Men for all season. Am I? I don't think I am. But I do something that sometimes can hit it, boom, right on the head. So I live with indeterminacy. Yeah, I'm talking a hell of a lot. Anything else? Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Mayuka.
Mayuka, hi. Good to see you again, honey.
Hi. So I've been dancing for a pretty long time, and I've always been given themes or emotions or a story to think about when I dance. So this idea of pure movement is new and interesting to me. I have a question for you and also Shayla, if she's still backstage, maybe not. My question to you is...
Do you have a chair? I know she's been on her legs. She probably does not want to be standing up here like I am. Yeah. Please.
So my question to you, Bill, is whether you give the dancers something to think about besides the shape of the movement or how the movement should be performed. And for Shayla, my question is there a point, for an example, in the Nebraska piece, is there a point when you...
Nebraska phrase.
In the Nebraska phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a point when you develop an emotional connection with the phrase that's not just purely about the movement?
Now, she doesn't have a microphone, of course. Is there one over here? Yes. No, I think we have one coming. Mm-hmm. Please. No, you go for it. Go.
So I'm used to performing that piece, which is a larger piece. What you saw were, phrases, with a partner, Leah Cox. I've done it for like the past 3 years. It's usually after the Nebraska phrase, which goes into the heel phrase, but it's the elbow phrase that by doing all of the movement in the beginning, in those the first two sections actually, by going through all of the tasks that the body has to go through and remembering, and it's really arduous, It's usually by the elbow phrase, and I'm looking at my partner, that I actually, I feel something, and I don't really know what that feeling is, but maybe it's just connection, and it's less about pure movement and am I on my leg or what the task is at hand. It becomes more, and I think that's just in the doing of it,
And I never asked them, I once watched Mr. Ailey, who was a friend, and he was on my board, so I say this with love, but I watched him coach the great Donna Wood in one of his solos. And I remember it was on PBS, and he was saying, and now, fly, be like a bird, and now, spiral down to hell, and now go to the sky, and so on. I found it really corny. I hated it. So I don't try not to coach that way. However, you heard me say tonight, here is, when she comes over here, she's supposed to be moving her legs up in a sensual way. And when I demonstrated, I sang Shiny Stockings, as I've heard Ella Fitzgerald sing it. So I'm thinking, my big shiny stockings, she says, right? And she's on high heels, and she's walking out with high heels, and she's got big legs, the legs like your mama had, and you're lifting up. And now that's what I said to them, that's the way I want you to feel doing it. But that's as close as I get to coaching them around emotions. What can I say if this is here? Drop the scapula in the back, this go over, and now fill the negative space. And just as this reaches here, as if an electrical conductor has been touched, this releases here, and it goes down. This, and as if, and then there. But now just do the problem, but just give them enough to hold on to. Was Lincoln different? Did we talk more about...
Emotions? Maybe for me, actually, yeah, that part, right before the war, the beginning of the war. But the actual movement, I think the person whom you worked with the most with emoting was maybe Mary Todd.
Well, yes, Mary
Todd.
Mary
but
Todd.
Everything in Lincoln came from what you saw here, like these type of problems. It's all just abstract, pure movement. And I think that that's the genius about it, is that you could take that first solo that I do and strip it of the music and the lighting and the dress and put me in this outfit right here, and would it mean the same,
But I think it would be still valid, and for many people, it would be engaging.
Yes, I agree. For me,
yeah,
it's definitely engaging.
Yeah. Yes, anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Imani Williams.
Hello, Imani.
Hello. Thank you so much. This was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. I was really engaged. And I wanted to talk or to ask you about the mystery, and if you could explain possibly about the way or the mystery of how dance impacts an individual in any way. And I wanted to just comment quickly.
An individual doing the dance or an individual watching the dance?
The individual watching the dance. And I just wanted to share.
Sounds like what she was asking, isn't it?
Well, in a different context, because I personally, when you were dancing, and I've danced before in the past, but like certain movements, my toes would clench the floor as if I was dancing with you. And the last part, when you breathe, I was holding my breath, because I just felt like I was moving with you, and certain parts I tasted syrup in my mouth, and certain movements were like water, and I'm trying to figure out what is going on inside of me that I'm feeling you in this way, and then you keep mentioning mystery, and so I'm like...
And now I'm feeling you. And I'm feeling you like I see Estella, when she would do this, when she would do that, and it is such a big, you're speaking, and even the sound of your voice, I even stopped listening to what you were saying, and I was feeling your voice, and I began to become emotional. And then in my emotion, I saw her doing this. So I think we know our answer in a way. Now, I think there's something really profound that happened between you and me, and I couldn't tell you, I have an idea what it means, but I couldn't tell you what it is. My job is, how can I find those moments for this lady or for these ladies here in the front? I don't know what's the formula for it, I don't know. But that is, dance, I have faith that dance is accessible to people, because we all have this thing that we all know what gravity feels like. We all know unless we have had an accident, we've lost a leg, we all know what it means to be on one leg or off. I think that's why dance has a potential to really communicate across all sorts of lines. That's what they promise. You might ask then, Bill, why do you put so much text in it? Well, that's perverse on my part, maybe. But it's also asking the question, yes, I can put you in a mood with my movement, but now can I say there's somebody in the room who is being abused right now. There is somebody who is going to take a knife in the gut in the next 5 minutes. Now, what is that? Which one do you listen to? You only watch, or do you have to make something of the two? When I was watching Shayla tonight, even, knowing what I told you, I was wondering now, who in the room is able to really watch these things and remember, as John Cage and Morton Feldman are complaining and using terms like primitive people, and did you notice that she was here tonight when he said that about primitive people, you know? And I was thinking, well, oh, what an interesting accident that was. Relationships are coming and then they go away. I was watching it myself with that kind of feeling. So that's the mystery that I think we're talking about. And yes, dance is one way to do it, but I think every art form potentially can do it. It's a certain level of focus and concentration on the part of the dance maker or the art maker. Is that what you're getting at? Close enough, huh? But I thank you for that. Thank you. One more question? Yes, ma'am. Oops, yeah, right there.
My name's Kesaya.
Hello.
Hi. I was really moved tonight, and I'm struck by how there's the experience in the moment of seeing something, and then there's the experience of going away with it, and what happens afterward. I was listening especially hard to what your mother was saying, and I was really moved by the words and struck that I can't remember the words. They were very simple, but I can't remember them.
And her accent, could you understand her accent?
I could. I listened really hard.
Yeah, because sometimes I can't quite understand
I
it. But yeah.
thought I did anyway. But I don't know what this will mean to me when I leave, because my father's 94, and he's going through a tough time right now, dealing with the loss of his body. He still can go out into the fields to farm, but he can only go out for an hour instead of going out for 8 hours.
And how old is he?
94. A couple of years ago, he unloaded 1,000 pounds of fertilizer all by himself from a truck.
Damn.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
But
wow,
he's really bummed.
That's it. Wow. Well,
He's bummed. He's really, really bummed right now because he's losing his ability as far as he's concerned. And so, to me, this was what I was tuned into, was about your mom and loss.
Now, was that a shortcut? See, this is some of my critics have accused me of cheating, because you know stuff about that. That was my mother speaking and all. Is that actually doing work that the work would have to do on its own if you did not know any of those things? And because biography, I started out complaining about Richard. That wasn't complaining, Richard, but I was trying to correct it. You know, about my biography and all. And I'm a very public person. You can go online and read about very intimate things about me and so on. So everything, when you come to the performances, you come loaded with that stuff. Is that cheating? I'm glad. I feel like what you just told me about your father, like this, I take it as one of the fruits of this process. If you had never told me, I have to believe that maybe somebody else had similar feelings, and that was sparked by what I did, what we did. But I can't. But what do you think about that?
Oh, I think I love it at every level. So if I go in and I don't hear that background, then it's one experience. Then I get to come to this talk that I was looking forward to, and I hear you say what you say, and then I have another experience. And then I go away home, and I think about, what was the experience before I heard your talk? What was the experience after I heard the talk? What is the experience for me now when I face my dad? Because he's losing words. He can't, it's harder for him to speak. It's harder for me to know how to be his daughter and love him. I wish I could lift this from him, and I can't.
Talk about mystery, huh?
Yeah, but
And it's the most natural thing in the world that's happening.
But it's
very,
hard.
It's very natural.
It's hard, yeah.
And yet, for some reason, we bridle against it. We struggle with it. Now, that's mysterious, isn't it? Why is it hard for us? Not to say that it shouldn't be, you know? But you know that idea that the Buddhists have, I think it's the Tibetan Buddhists, the art of dying? The idea that every day should be a preparation for death. Not that you sit around and cry, but every day you sit quietly, every day you cease the mind, every day you imagine or you try to feel a world in which you are not a part of it. And they call it the art of dying. It's a lifetime of preparing for the moment when you will leave this body.
Or maybe it's really being in the moment and knowing your death in each moment.
Yes.
Because every day is death. There's death all through the day. We don't want to face it, but it's loss. You get something else, and when you're younger, maybe there's so many things to look for. When you're older, there's more of the loss to feel. So I don't know what it all means, but to me, I believe absolutely what you said, that every art form that's truly from that deep place, not from the mind, but from the deep place.
Now, the mind can be a deep place.
The mind can be a deep place, but
Yeah.
art that is created only from the mind, to me, that the mind understands, is not a deep art. Because the art that is created from, yes, it includes the mind, but it's beyond the mind. If you read a novel that it doesn't come from that deep place,
Yeah.
the mystery isn't there.
It's just not a good novel.
They
right?
they plot it with their head. But anyway,
I'm convinced, though, that there is something to be said for the fact that we recreate everything that we experience. And therefore, if there's a modicum of skill in certain objects will attract the imagination. And I dare say, because this is the gold here, this is what we've all been talking about all evening, then feelings will come. I think that we look at things from the ancient world completely not understanding what they were intended for. And we are moved by them. The object and what our experience are not the same thing. So when I try too hard to make you feel something, I probably fail. Present something that's going to allow you space to, how does Rilke say it? See the tree, now put your mind space around it, now it exists. Now, you might think that's very anthropomorphic and chauvinistic, but there is something about the fact that what he was getting at is we recreate the world. And the work of art has got to have enough room for you to have mystery. And going to even the practitioner of it will not tell you what it is, how it explains your feeling. Even the person that made it will not explain your feeling. Hallelujah. Yes,
Amen.
yes. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, and good night. Good night. Thank you so much.